So the video was a nice example, and there's another video very interesting that features real Steve Hayes, a bus driver video. It kind of has similar message that the bus driver has a destination he has to go, and then there is a annoying passenger who tries to interfere with the driving all the time. Yeah. So that's it. So the point of ACT is that you will have this psychological suffering and pain, but it's impossible to get rid of it. In fact, if you accept and learn how to deal with it and go with it, then it will become much more manageable. So in ACT, the acceptance, you should not be confused. Acceptance is not wanting. You don't want psychological pain deliberately, and you don't want to do the conditional things like, oh, I'll accept it as long as it's not too painful. There's no compromise like that. And acceptance is not resisting your pain, it's not forgetting your pain, it's not believing your pain. It's just the active vital embracement of the moment. Like you enjoy the party regardless of Brian, regardless of the psychological pain or suffering. Did I tell you how Steve Hayes developed ACT? He was a professor of University of Nevada, very promising assistant professor, and then he started having panic attacks, very, very, very badly. It became worse very quickly. At some point, he couldn't not only lecture, he couldn't even go to faculty meetings because of the anxiety and panic attacks. And he was actually he was a student of David Barlow, so he tried CBT himself and didn't work. He tried everything, nothing worked. And finally, with this suffering and he's trying everything and being desperate and persistence and motivation, he ended up with this new approach to deal with psychological pain. That's acceptance and commitment therapy. So he is actually a survivor of severe panic disorder. Yeah, it's a few years ago, Newsweek had an article about him, and very interesting photos of him. And in that article, they talked about the whole history of his career and his disorder and how he developed this new therapy. So if you have some time also, you can Google Newsweek and Steve Hayes, and you'll find it. Interesting photos there too.
Has this like philosophy been used in Eastern kind of?
Yeah, a lot. It's really, I mean, so in the process of trying everything, he ended up combining this like meditation, the experiential approach. So yeah, it's not, it's very, there are a lot of similarity between Buddhism and MBSR and ACT and DBT. Marsha Linehan, she says explicitly in her book that he relied on Buddhism a lot when she came up with the ideas of mindfulness. She herself also a survivor of borderline personality disorder, although it was known pretty recently. Before it was not known, she didn't open it. I think about 3 years ago. 3 years ago?
2009.
2009 she opened it? Yeah. So
she made a statement, to New York Times.
I think it was 2012 or so. I remember reading the article when after I came here. So it's 2012 or 11, something like that. She's a very interesting, original, intense person too. So I leave it for Gosia. So in the commitment part, so okay, now what? We accept our psychological pain. Now we accept that we cannot completely remove it. So now what? Just move forward with your life. So when you are caught in the struggle with psychological problems, we often put our lives on hold, believing that our pain needs to be removed, or it should be at least like minimized before we can really begin to live again. It's like, I'll be happy when I get my dream job. I'll be happy when I can make 6-figure, things like that. Like, I'll be happy when I don't have like these panic problems. It's not like that. You won't become happy like that. It's more about you moving on with your life no matter what. So find your direction first. But so in ACT, you could have your life. And your life could be what you want to be, and you can start it right now. And in fact, you should start it right now, no matter what kind of psychological pain you have on your side. So it's not about solving problems in a traditional way, reduce the pain or remove the pain, not like that. It's more about, even with the pain, find your direction. So your life should be more about what you value than unnecessary artificial amplification of the pain. So when you find your direction of your life, actually, like the unwanted party guest Brian became more bearable. Your psychological pain may become more bearable when you find your direction of life. So these are the famous hexagon of ACT. So ACT pursues the psychological flexibility. And to get that, you need to pay attention to these 6 components. And I'll explain it one by one in the next slide. Diffusion, committed action, flexible attention, self as context, values, and acceptance. And there is, in your ACT Made Simple book, there's a lot of exercise you could do to make your own hexagon. Okay, diffusion. Note the spelling's different, right? It's D-E. So it's like undoing fusion.
D.
Yeah,
Fusion.
it's
Okay,
D. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it differently.
No, you pronounced it right. There's a
I did it right? Okay. It's not.
It's a subtle difference.
Yeah, it's not my first language. I always get. Okay, so it's but I noticed the different spelling. See, it's not undoing fusion meaning. Okay, so it means learning to be consciously aware of one's thinking as it occurs. You are not fused with your ideas or thoughts. You notice when your thinking occurs. It's very different. Right? Yeah, it's mindfulness. Yeah. So it means disentangling people from their mind. It's one of the main aims of ACT. So most people, they cannot even differentiate what they think and who they are. What they think is who they are. Young kids, and also actually not just young kids, a lot of people also can differentiate what other people think and who they are. So my older daughter would tease my younger daughter like, "Oh, you're so dumb," and then my younger one gets really, really upset. And I tell her, "Yeah, it's what your sister thinks. And is it really correct? Does it really make you dumb, what your sister thinks? And it may not even what she thinks, she just said it. She may not even think so, she just wanted to make you upset." So all this differentiation, a lot of people actually don't pay attention to it too much. So when they have painful thoughts and when they have negative self-image, it's not just their thoughts, they think it's just me. When they have thoughts of I'm a terrible person, then it just automatically makes the person a terrible person. So we don't want to do that. So in ACT, we really make the diffusion happen. So not being fused with your own thoughts, that's very important. So it's kind of it sounds silly, but we did it in the workshop too, but like technique could be negative thoughts watched dispassionately, repeated out loud until only its sound remains. Like, I'm no good. If that's your representative bad thoughts about yourself, then you say it until it doesn't even sound like meaningful word anymore. Out loud. Actually, it doesn't take too much time if you really do it. So the result of diffusion is usually a decrease in believability or attachment to private events rather than immediate change in their frequency. So it will happen. If you have negative self-image, you will get these thoughts all the time. But once you realize that that's my thought, that's not myself, that's not my life, then the impact of it will be diminished. So you can watch what the mind says rather than be a slave to it. Young kids, instead of getting upset when their older siblings say you're dumb, then watch, oh, my sister's saying I'm dumb. That doesn't mean that I'm a dumb person. It's just it's what's happening. So they can be looked at rather than looked from your thoughts. So that's the diffusion. And acceptance of private events. It's thought as an alternative to avoidance. So acceptance is opposite from avoidance, at least in ACT terms. So active and aware embracement of private events. You don't make attempts to change their content or their frequency or their form. So you don't even attempt. If you tend to have negative thoughts like I'm a hopeless, terrible person, like I'm incapable or something like that, then you tend to have these thoughts like 10 times an hour. You don't even try to reduce the frequency. You don't even try to change the content of it. You just acknowledge that I have this kind of thoughts, 10 times an hour, and that's what's happening. And that's it. You just acknowledge and accept. Don't try to avoid, don't try to change it. And then being present. So non-judgmental contact with psychological environmental events as they occur. This is what you hear all the time when you do meditation, right? Just experience the present moment, non-judgment. Thoughts and feelings come and go, and you just stay in the present moment. So, and when you're in the present, you're flexible and responsive. It's the problem occurs when you worry about future, when you get pain from thinking about the past. But when you are in the present moment, if you are mindful and if you don't judge about what's happening right now, then actually it's much less painful. And then self as context is a very important concept. So it tries to give us better sense of ourselves, observed self. So there is a self you experience and there's a self you observe. So instead of if you have pain, if you have negative thoughts, if you have negative feelings, instead of becoming those, you observe those things that happens in yourself, and then you are aware of your own flow of experience without attaching to them or without investing on some particular experience. So you kind of observe what's going on. So that's the self as context. It's like you view yourself from outside. And then now you move to your valued goal. When you do ACT, you realize that, a lot of people, they are consumed with the struggle with psychological pain, and they are so they're so tired from this battle. They didn't even have time to think about what kind of life they want to live, and what's the direction of their life. They didn't even have time to think about it. They just think of, I'll be happy only if I don't have panic attacks anymore. I'll be happy only if I don't have social phobia anymore. I'll be so happy if I don't have this depression anymore. So in ACT, you don't stop there. You want to actually help your client find the direction of their life. And to do that, you need time to step back from everyday life and take a look at what gives our lives meaning, and look for larger possibilities, and what kind of thing can guide us to the more constructive action. But those kind of qualities of purposive action, it should not be an object you can obtain. It's more about the experience you can have moment by moment. So that's what ACT promotes. You want to find a goal with your client, for the client's life's goal. You want to find it, but it should not be like, I want to become a millionaire. Or I want to have a 20-something-year-old hardy husband. Or anything like that. It's not, no, I mean that's what they do with their life coaches. They do that. But that's not what ACT is promoting. Actually they said it should not be the goal. The goal should be something you experience moment by moment, not something you grab. So when we do this workbook, we'll find out even better. So that's the valued direction, and when ACT is talking about. Probably after doing a lot of therapy, all these ACT therapists realize that when you have a goal like that, becoming a millionaire or obtaining a Ferrari sports car, that's not going to be a therapeutic goal. Okay, so and then now you found a goal, and then you need to move on to your action. So the effective action should be linked to the chosen values. And then at this point, pretty much like behavioral therapy, ACT can use exposure, skills acquisition, shaping methods, and goal setting. Use all the proven method in the behavioral therapy to make your client committed to the action and do it and make changes in their life.
This brings up a question. It brings up a question from an actual work with a client. And I was talking with a client about her values, and it turns out that her values don't match at all with her boyfriend's. Boyfriend has a very different set of values and wants different things and sees relationships differently and so forth, and there's just this incredible mismatch. And it's very hard for this client to take any kind of action within that relationship, because she just hits up against this wall with her partner. And so it just seems like this incredibly stuck situation, these two people sort of in a growling pit together, because their way of seeing the world just does not match.
But it's not a couples therapy.
No, I'm only dealing with one person.